Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. I'm Dr. Karen Wyatt. Thanks for joining me here. Just so you know, I have a podcast called End of Life University that you can listen to wherever you happen to enjoy podcasts. But I'm glad you're here on this channel because you get to actually see the interviews as they take place that I post here. So today I'm sharing with you a really fun interview I did with Linda Findlay. She is the creator of the Grief Cruises, and you're going to learn all about how you can go on a cruise and take grief workshops and focus on healing grief, including memorials for loved ones. It's really amazing, and I feel excited about it. Maybe I'd like to go on a cruise myself one day. So take a listen and join in this conversation. Don't forget to subscribe and leave comments down below. And come back next week. I'll have something new posted for you then. Here we go. Today, I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Linda Findlay. Linda is the founder of the Grief Cruises, which we'll be talking about today, and has escorted 4 groups on special healing cruises. After the death of her infant daughter in 1989, Linda found herself thrown into what she calls the bereavement world, and 2 years later, she founded Mourning Discoveries Grief Support Services, and I'll ask her a little bit about that too. She has served as an aftercare coordinator for funeral and facilitated bereavement. She has served as an aftercare coordinator for funeral homes and facilitated bereavement support groups as a hospice volunteer. And she is an AARP Widowed Person Service volunteer trainer and outreach provider. And you can learn more about Linda's work starting with thegriefcruises.com, and her other website is mourningdiscoveries.com, mourning spelled M-O-U-R, mourningdiscoveries.com. So Linda, thanks for joining me today and welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, ever since I read about the cruises, I've been really excited to talk to you and learn more about it because I'm very intrigued by this idea. And I thought maybe you could start by just telling us a little more about your story. I alluded to some of it in the bio, but what inspired you to do this work that you've been doing these last several years?
It's over 30 years now that I've actually been working in the funeral industry. As you said, I work for funeral homes, and how I got started in that is that, like you said, I lost my daughter in 1989, and as you would imagine, that was a loss that I just didn't know what my path was going to be. And so I found certain things that were helpful, and I started volunteering with hospice. And I started meeting funeral directors and asking them, what do you do for families after they experience a loss? And all of them said nothing but we should. So it was the should that I put together my own outreach programs that I then went to funeral homes and said, will you hire me to provide these services to your families? Because it's really valuable, and here's why. And so now 30 plus years later, I've worked for many funeral homes across the country during these years. I've also continued to facilitate support groups. Now I'm partnered with International Grief Institute, and we do a lot of training for funeral service professionals and how to teach them how to outreach to families. So in all of those years working with families, grieving families, if you imagine, I have other colleagues that I've met in this field, and oftentimes people talk about, oh, somebody should put a cruise together. It'd be a nice thing if we could just get a group of people who are grieving and take them on a cruise. So it was kind of talked about. And in my before life, before I lost my daughter, her name was Aubrey, I was a travel agent. And so in 2015, I kind of made the decision, it's now or never, that I was going to get back into the travel agency business. So I bought my franchise, Cruise Planners, and started planning the first grief cruise. And I had partnered with a very, very dear friend of mine and colleague, Mitch Carmody. So him and I came together, and Mitch was going to be putting together what's called the onboard program, because we have special programming that is available just for our families. And I was going to take care of all of the bookings and all of the guests, which is really important to me because I'm not just a travel agent. Somebody's going to call and say, I want a cabin, and that's it. I always say that first phone call that families talk to me, they're already in the midst of their grief. And so that's where their experience with the grief cruises begins. And so I take care of families from that point on. And we've planned these. We had our first sailing in 2016. And then in 2018, we had our second sailing. 2000 19, we had our third sailing. We were scheduled to go out in April of 2020, and that's when the whole world shut down and our cruise got canceled. And then we just completed our fourth cruise in December of 2021, or yeah, 21, because we're 22. And yeah, so I mean, it's just each time we've doubled the number of people who have come on board with us and have found consistently, you know, our first cruise was a 3-night cruise and everybody said it needs to be longer. So the second one was a 5-night cruise. Everybody said it wasn't long enough. So then our third one was a 7-night cruise. And since then we've booked only 7-night cruises because it really is an opportunity for people to come together and really get that support that they need while they're enjoying this beautiful ship and all these beautiful ports of call. You know, there's something we said about being with others who are grieving, but yet you're with your people, and that makes it okay. You know, we're not going on vacation, just dishonoring our loved ones, which is a common feeling that people experience. So it takes all of that away. So yeah, so it's still putting them together. We have our next one planned for October of 23. And yeah, so really excited about growing it and creating awareness for the cruise and having more people find out about it so that they can benefit from the program, and being with other families that are grieving. So
That's interesting. It sounds like it's a bit of a retreat in a way, a retreat in the sense that you're getting away from your day to day life and from all the burdens of just trying to survive and live each day and going off with people where you can really focus on the grief and work on that.
mhm.
But there is an element of relaxation with it, it sounds like.
Oh, there's a
And
big element. Yeah.
and
Yeah, big piece of it is.
as much vacation as people might want, if they want to do, if they want a distraction and a diversion and to have other experiences, that's available to them too as part of the cruise.
That's right. And again, that is kind of like you look at, we're merging, and you've used the perfect word, a grief retreat. And as a matter of fact, when I ask people how did they find us, a lot of people say I looked to see if there was a retreat for grief, and they find us. So I mean, people are looking for something to do that can help them to get away, but yet maybe work on some things that they're experiencing in the grief journey. And it just is a combination of the two, just bringing that tropical vacation together with a grief retreat. And it's worked. It's kind of magical actually. And I tell people I can describe to you what the cruise is and what it's like, but you can't actually grasp it unless you actually go on the cruise. And every single person that I've told that to has come back to me and said, you know what? You are absolutely right. I didn't know what to expect, and I got so much more. And I mean, that has been a consistent comment and how helpful it has been for families. And we have people keep coming back each cruise, each sailing. I have, parents and spouses or bereaved spouses who say, I don't care where you're going. I don't care what the ship is. I don't care what the port to call on. I'm going. This is my yearly thing that I'm doing for my loved ones. So that's been a really great outcome from the cruises as well.
Very interesting. And you mentioned families can go. Is there an age limit? I mean, a minimum age limit of children that can go on the cruise, or?
Well, anybody can go on the cruise in the family, is regardless of age, because it's just like any other cruise. There's two pieces to the whole event. There's the cruise itself, and then there's the seminars at sea program, which is the program that we create just for our guests. And with that, we say that the attendees have to be 18 and over. Sometimes we've had maybe a 15 or 16-year-old if the parent felt they, whatever it was would benefit them. A lot of what we do on the cruise, we're giving people coping skills. I say we're like a message of hope. It's not like we go to sessions all day and people are crying and all this kind of stuff. It isn't like that at all. So if a parent says, I think my child is mature enough to sit for the 50 minutes or whatever it is, and that's fine. But we say 18 for the program, and then there are children's programs on most ships, and parents can take advantage of that and have their children go into the program so that they can go to the seminars.
So this grief cruise is within the framework of a larger cruise with lots of other
Yes.
people on the ship as well. So it's a regular full-size cruise ship that you're
Yes,
on.
it is. Yes, it is. In the last 3 cruises that we've booked, we've been on the Royal Caribbean, the Oasis of the Sea class ship, which is the biggest ships in the world. And they're absolutely magnificent. But the most important piece of that is that they have really nice meeting space. We have private space where we hold all of our workshops and our activities where people don't have to be with the other guests on the ship. And we're not, intruding on anybody, and nobody's intruding in on us. So that's worked out really well, because the first couple of cruises we went on, they put us in a lounge or something, people would be walking through. I was like, no, this, I mean, nobody complained about it, but I was like, no, I need something better for our group, where they really have that sacred space where they can go and feel, they're part of this group and there's not other people. And then you want to get away from that. And then you want to be able to have your guests go and enjoy all the amenities of the ship. We do dinner together. We specifically hold our seminars at sea program on the days that we're out to sea, so that when we're at port on any of these cruises that we take, and people can go off and go on excursions. They can just go walk off the ship and go explore the area. They still get to get that whole experience of the different ports of call and those types of things. And it's amazing how even people hook up on the ship and say, oh, we're all going to we're going to go out and do this or what have you. So it gives them that balance of working on maybe getting some coping skills, but yet enjoying this beautiful ocean, the ship, and this port of call. So yeah, it's a great combination.
Yeah. So the people who are grieving, I would imagine they form their own little community and support group in a way within the ship. So they have one another to turn to if they need that, or
Yeah.
even to go together, like you were describing as a group. If they go off to a port of call to do some sightseeing, they can still go as a group and know everyone here gets me and knows
Yes,
what I'm
they do. And
experiencing.
again, that is the magic that happens for these people, is that it's okay. They're comfortable with, when they're with somebody else in our group and they say, well, I know how you feel. Well, they know that person knows how they feel. They know that. And so those bonds are formed. And again, we've had, and there's some things that happen that are really awesome. Like, we'll be in the restaurant and our whole group is laughing, and people will come up to us and say, I want to be part of your group. And all of us are like, no, you really don't want to be, you know what I mean? So it's
You
like,
have
we
no
do
idea.
that. We do enjoy our company. We do enjoy what the ship has to offer. And again, it gives people a chance to relax, disconnect, recharge, whatever word you want to use. It can help people to feel like, they're being able to get away from their everyday lives, and then be with others that are in the same, I say, the same boat. I mean, I don't say that to be funny, but you're serious, you're in the same boat with people. And so it works, and it's been absolutely wonderful.
Tell me about some of the seminars that you offer. Like, what kinds of things are you teaching people and helping them with during the cruise?
Oh gosh, it's been uh, the thing that has remained consistent is that with our onboard program, all of our activities and seminars are on the days that we're out to sea. We do sometimes have small group support group sessions at night for just an hour, because we don't want people to miss, the things, the entertainment or whatever they'd like to do at night. So that's pretty consistent. As far as the topics, everything from how to take care of yourself when you're grieving. What are some healing modalities that might be helpful for people? We share a lot of information about that. We've had people come on as presenters about aromatherapy, Reiki, yoga. We kind of, each one's been a little different depending on what presenters come with us. But we try and offer a lot of tools. And we say to people the first night, we say to them, you're going to go home with a toolbox. And, hopefully there's something in there that when you get home, you're going to be able to use that tool to help you get through a day or get through an hour, whatever it is that you need, and have that support and those resources that otherwise they probably just don't have. And a lot of our workshops, all uplifting, it's all, I mean, are there those times that, people will talk about their loved ones, which is a part of this experience as well. And we might shed a tear or something like that. I mean, we have every cruise so far, we have a night of remembrance. We do a remembrance ceremony. And that brings people to that event. And obviously they're there to honor their loved ones. And there might be a tear or two shared, but for the most part, it's a very uplifting, hopeful message that we try to give. And then I think ultimately, what our guests get out of this, and they've told us and we've confirmed it, they really realize that joy and grief can coexist. I mean, you've probably heard that out there in the world somewhere, that people have to ultimately learn that that is how you move on in life after you have a loss, is learning that your grief is there, but that yet you can have joy. And people coming on this cruise like, oh my gosh, yes, I love, sitting on my balcony and enjoying that ocean. I mean, there's something to be said about that, and allowing yourself to do that. And so there's just different topics that we talk about. I mean, just so many, just all having to do with dealing with grief, dealing with how to feel you're still connected to your loved one. What are some things we can do to help us to feel connected to them when the rest of the world's telling us to move on? that is not what we need to do. So we have all types of, sessions that have to do with things like that,
Hmm.
just to
I
help people.
I love that. I was thinking a cruise is a great place to talk about self-care because you're in a place where someone else is cooking the food. You can eat when you want and when you feel a need to. You can exercise if you want or not. And
Exactly.
it's really great for people to just have that little time out and that space when they can focus on their grief as much as they want and work on healing, but not have a lot of other expectations on
No,
them.
and they don't have to do anything. And and I mean, that's the beauty of a cruise anyhow, is that, your meals are all included. You can eat all day long if you want to do that, or not, there's entertainment. I mean, there's just so much for people to be able to just, put their energies into and enjoy. And it's all included in the cruise piece of it, because that's what a cruise is to relax and enjoy and not have to, cook or do your laundry. All you got to do is relax. And on the cruise ships, you can be busy all day. They have a schedule they put in your cabin every night before for the next day, or you can do nothing. You can just sit on your balcony if you have one, or you can sit on top deck and you don't have to do anything. So the choice is up, the person makes the choice as to what they'd like to do, and the same with the onboard program. But we do find that most people go to all of our sessions. So it's not like, unless it's something that we have like a session just for men. Sometimes we have sessions just for parents who've lost a child. We've had sessions for families that lost a loved one to suicide. So we try and cater each of the programs according to, first, who our presenters are, what their capabilities and qualifications are. And then second, because I take care of every guest who joins us, I know what the losses are. So as we get closer to developing that program, I know already who's lost who and what maybe we should have more sessions of. So that's kind of worked out really well as well, as me taking care of everything from the first phone call straight through. I can kind of tailor what we're doing according to, because we do plan these at least 18 months in advance. So we have to, in order to get the meeting space and the cabins and all of that. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell, I guess.
So just one little technical thing. Do the people in the grief program, are there rooms or cabins close together so that they're in one location or near each other, or just spread out
Well, I
randomly?
typically try and put all of our guests on the same deck. I do have some people who would prefer to be on, a higher deck or a lower deck or those types of things. But generally, I like to have everybody on the same deck, so that for that reason, so that, they're running into each other. And that's really a good thing. Sometimes some of these ships are so big, they need to run into each other, figure out where they're going. So it's kind of
Yeah,
works out.
I was thinking
Yeah.
that seems like part of the community is just being in a physical space
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
enhances that community. And then I read online that you can also offer a scattering of ashes or burial
Yeah.
of ashes at sea.
Yes. So we do offer burial of loved ones cremains at sea. We do have, we only can limit that depending on what ship and what they tell us. We can't obviously take, 50 guests and all 50 of them do that. In each cruise, we've had families that have participated in that. And what they do is they bring some of their loved ones cremains, and they have to be put into a biodegradable water soluble urn, which I, again, help them take care of, making sure that they have that. We follow all the rules of the ship. And then on whatever day that we're so many miles out to sea, we don't know what day it is until we're actually on the ship. And they come to us and they tell us the captain is ready. The captain comes with us and escorts us to a special place, a private place on the ship. We do our little ritual, or, we've had music we've played, poems we've read, just different things, just to have a little ritual. And then we allow the person to disperse their loved ones' cremains in the urn. So it's not ashes spreading all over the place. It's actually an urn. And the captain is actually there with us and some of their teammates. And what they do is they tell us exactly what the coordinates were where the cremains were dispersed. And they told us that like the first couple of cruises. And I finally realized one of them comes with a telephone and calls the bridge when the cremains go overboard. So they do tell us exactly where our cremains went over. And then they give us a certificate for each of the families. And the captain signs it with the loved one's name, with the coordinates and the date. So, I mean, it's a real special thing that people can participate in if they want to.
That's really wonderful. And it sounds like the captain and crew are very supportive of
Yes,
this,
they
which
are.
is it's so nice that they also participate in it.
Yes. It's very special. It really, I've done a lot of events. I've done so many different outreach events into communities through my funeral homes, and that burial at sea is one of the most special things I've ever done. For that reason, that I mean, a captain of this mega ship is standing there with us, and just allowing us to have that space and that time to honor their loved ones, and then to be able, because typically you can't put anything off a ship. I mean, I couldn't go to my cabin and throw an urn out beside my ship, right? So, I mean, it's all, and like I said, with them giving them the certificates, and this last time they actually laminated them for everybody, which was really nice. It's just a
Wow.
beautiful certificate, something for them to take home, and it's just very special.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I could see what a wonderful like memorial this could be for, especially if you had a loved one who loved the ocean or loved
And we have,
cruises
we
for
have,
the
yeah.
for the for the whole family. Do you have extended families who will come?
As far as, I
Like
have, yep, I've
cousins and
had,
aunts and uncles
yeah, yeah,
and
I've
the
had, families that have come, like maybe the widow lost her husband and she brought her sister and her niece, or, and like you said, cousins. Yeah, we have, it's all different combinations of people who have come, it doesn't matter what the person's loss was. It doesn't matter how long ago the loss was. We've had people who've lost their loved ones. I think the closest was, I think, 4 weeks before we actually sailed. And we've had people who've come to us that are 30 years past their loss. So, I mean, it's just a wide range of, and then all the different types of loss and all the different manners of death. I mean, whoever, as long as it's the loss of a loved one, they're more than welcome to join us.
do you have some people who come solo just by themselves on the
Yes,
cruise?
we do. And we find that we have a lot of people that want to travel solo. I have a lot of widows who have never traveled by themselves. And I call them my widow warriors, because they've never traveled alone. And on each of our cruises, I have a certain group, whatever the numbers happen to be, depending on the cruise, that they're coming themselves and they don't care. They're doing this. And then again, they get there and they find out that, wow, I've got lifelong friends. We had a widow who came with us. She was, I think, I'm going to say 84 years old. And after everything was done, she said to me, I still get chills when I think of this. She said, that was the best week of my entire life. I mean, this woman was in her 80s. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my gosh, I was like, thank you so much for, sharing how you feel about them, because it's just incredible what people get out of this. And like I said, we have repeat guests who come back with us for each sailing. And again, it's just been a really great experience for anybody who's gone on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's really wonderful that it's accessible to anyone too of any age, so that I mean you can be older and not be particularly mobile necessarily, but you can still get around and enjoy
Oh, yeah,
the
we've had
ship
people
and
that
the
come on with their little scooters, and we make all those arrangements for them. Whatever their needs are, we try and meet them. If we can, we will. And then, like I said, in the past that has happened. We've got to make sure that people are taken care of. So,
Are you there on every cruise
oh yeah.
as the coordinator? And kind of I would think of you're kind of like the mother hen in a way,
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
after everyone and just making sure everyone's okay.
that's exactly what I am. That's why I say, we're called the Grief Cruises, hosted by Linda Findlay, because I actually host all of them, and I obviously escorted all of them. I've presented on some of the cruises, the later couple, the last two that we've had. I did only a couple of presentations because I found that, I can't be presenter and take care of, a group of people at the same time as well as I'd like to. So I kind of like don't do the presenting part as much as I used to. And that's fine. I feel like I'm there, and I can't tell you how many times I'm pulled aside in this direction and the other direction, and it's fine. It's what it's about. I took that first phone call, right? So I've walked with that person through making all of their plans and getting them to the port, getting them on the ship, and there I am with them, right until they get off that ship, and I'm help them with their arrangements, get back to the airport. I said, after that point, you're on your own. You just got to get you from the airport and back to the airport. But the rest of that, you got to get yourself there. So yeah, but I'm there just to support everybody, the group, the presenters. We've always had wonderful presenters. I have more people who ask about presenting than I could never have imagined. We will never ever lack for presenters. As a matter of fact, we had so many in the 2019 cruise. We're like, we can't do that. That's too many presenters, because then you're really skimping on time, and it's just too much. So we're learning every year. We go out, we learn something new to help us make it better and better. And it was the best the first time. if that makes any sense, but we've learned, and we just keep doing what we need to do to just make it the best experience it can be for whoever decides to join us.
Well, I have a few questions because I've never been on a cruise myself ever, partly because I'm so afraid of seasickness because I've had a
Mhm.
little trouble with that before. So I'm just going to ask you about that. Is that
Oh, that's fine.
is that an issue? You can put my mind at ease around seasickness.
Well, the best way I can put your mind at ease too is that, particularly on the ships that we're on, the big mega ships, and I think going forward, that's kind of the direction we're going in. They're so big, unless there was like a torrential storm of some sort, and even then, the captain will skirt around it. They have these huge stabilizers that they put out onto the side of the ship. And I tell you, when you're standing there looking over into the ocean, that huge mega ship is literally gliding. I mean, to feel movement, it's not, then they tell you, get a midship cabin. As a matter of fact, I went on a cruise by myself, as a matter of fact, January 2020. It was right before the whole world shut down. And I went to the captain's, he had a question and answer session. And somebody asked, where's the best place on the ship if somebody's worried about seasickness? And he said deck 3 in the middle, which is an interior cabin, which I would never recommend anybody, but we can kind of tell you what's better position wise. I'm not an advocate of medications, but obviously there's medications people can come with that prevent seasickness. And we always say, get it before it even hits you. But as far as there being any rocking or thrashing, none of the cruises, we've not had any of that. I don't think I've actually even had anybody come to me and say, I've spent my time in my cabin because I'm seasick. I mean, it's just not, when you think of that, those were in the way back when days when the ships were a lot smaller. They didn't have the radar that they have now. So I find even people who get car sick are perfectly fine on these ships. I mean, that's just been my experience. Now, can't promise that to anybody, right? I mean, I'd like to, but I can just tell you some things that you can do to avoid it, and where is the best cabin as far as location, and the rest of it. So far, people have been good.
So
Yeah,
that's good. That is reassuring.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so where do you leave from and return to?
All of our cruises so far have gone out of Florida. So we've gone out of Tampa, Cape Canaveral, and Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. This next cruise, we're going out of Port Canaveral, and we're actually going to be on Royal Caribbean's brand new ship. They just rolled out about 2 months ago. And again, every time they come out with the next brand new ship, it is the biggest ship in the world. And so we were blessed to be able to get meeting space on that ship. And we're just so excited about it. And that's why it was pushed out to October of 23, because we couldn't get a bigger ship between December of 21, and we couldn't get anything that we wanted in 22. So actually we had a cruise booked in January, and the cruise company decided to put that ship in the dry dock unbeknownst to us. And we just happened to be, several people's groups were canceled. So, but anyways, we're going out October 1st to the 8th, 2023. And we're going out of Port Canaveral, and it is an Eastern Caribbean sailing. And just 3 days we'll be out to sea. We'll be at port 3 days, and that'll be our time together. So really
That
looking forward.
that sounds really wonderful. So it sounds like for every cruise you have to kind of start from scratch, like getting the ship and putting it
Yeah,
all together and your presenters and everything.
yeah.
It's never the same two times in a row.
It's right. It's never the same, in the sense that we do have, some of our presenters who've come with us every cruise. We have our core people who have been with us from the beginning. And the other thing I want to mention too, for each cruise, we have our night of remembrance. We also do a walk to remember, one of the nights top deck. And I mean, again, there's something to be said about that. And we call it a candle lighting ceremony, but obviously we don't have candles on a ship, but we have our little votives or our little, LCDs or whatever they are, lights, and we do some things with that. And then we also put together a memory wall. So that first night that we come together, we have a session. We call it our opening session. And we come together after dinner, and we put together a beautiful wall that people bring all their loved ones' pictures. And I mean, you can see there's a video on our website. I'm sure it has some good, video and pictures of that. And it's just beautiful, just looking at that wall with everybody's loved ones and how everybody's helping each other, to put their pictures up and all that. So that's another special thing that we do for our group.
That's really sweet. And
Yeah,
you're really utilizing all the advantages of having a group together
yeah,
in a space that can interact with each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
And I can imagine that 7 days is the perfect time. Is it that's important that it lasts that long, just
yeah,
for the community building between people, but also just the time it takes for people to really work on their grief and get comfortable in that group and start processing.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, and I have people now have told me they want 10-day cruise. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. I think we're going to just stick with the 7-day for now. I've got people, why can't you have 2 cruises a year? And as you just alluded to, we start planning these 18 to 24 months in advance. Again, not only being able to find the right ship, getting the group space, making sure they have the meeting space. I mean, there is a lot involved in that. And then, like you said, what presenters are going to be available, what type of program we're going to need to put together, what is the demographics of the guests as far as their losses. So it's a lot of planning. So I think of 2 in a year. I'm like, I don't know about that at this point. No, we're trying to do one once a year. And we've had a couple of hiccups, like I said, with COVID, and then with getting this other ship, we had to push it out to October of 23, but it's okay. I'm already talking to people and I tell them, they're like, I don't want to bother you. I know it's a ways away. And I'm like, no, you can call me anytime. And you know what? They do. Because again, they've already made that connection with me. And so I feel like I've made friends long before I actually got on the ship or get on the ship, that I've really developed, friendships with these people and just helping them. And then I end up helping them with their grief as well, which happens to be my life's work anyhow, working with my funeral home. So it all just kind of comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if someone were thinking they would like to kind of use this as a memorial service for their loved one and bring cremains in a special urn, do they need to let you know that far in
Yes.
advance so that you can schedule that?
Yes, they do, because I have to get an official approval for each person who requests it through Royal Caribbean. And then they won't give me a number for each sailing and say, oh, this sailing you can have, 5 or what have you. I have all of them have been approved. I don't know if there's a set number, but we do have, and I have to literally have a confirmation number, and I have to literally collect death certificates and cremain certificates and make sure the captain has all of that. Because there's rules and guidelines that we have to go by in order to do that. So yeah, that's a whole nother little piece of, what needs to be coordinated, and it all ends up fine. It's all beautiful. So.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said you tell people they'll come away with like a toolkit of things they can use to help them. So there's no expectation or promise that 1 week at sea and your grief will be resolved
No,
whatsoever,
that is
because
not.
we knowing that's not realistic, but
That
that
is not going to
what
happen.
yeah, what a great time to take away, be with other people who understand what you're experiencing, learn some things, care for yourself, build up your resilience a little bit, really,
Yep,
is what
exactly.
it
We do
sounds like.
workshops on resilience. That's one of the topics that we usually have at each of the sailings is about resilience. Yeah.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Well, I can imagine there are people listening who would love to be a presenter, but you already mentioned you're overwhelmed with presenters. But is there a way for people to apply to be a presenter if they wanted to offer something?
I'm not sure if there might be a form on our website that says, request to present. I basically have people who just email me because somehow they, like yourself, you emailed me and you've somehow found the cruise, and they'll say, I'd love to be a presenter. And then we can go back and forth with some conversation depending on what our needs are for each of the cruises. Might have 50 presenters that have put in an application to present, but then this one person really has something they need for that specific cruise. So it just, anyone who's applied, I think, is fully qualified to be with us based on what they send us. It's just a matter of what do we need for our program. And again, in 2019 we had so many presenters. I felt it was wonderful, and nobody complained about it. I just thought, I think we need to have less presenters, so we're not worried about getting in 10 seminars each of those days out to sea, because that's just like, that's a lot
Yeah.
for people. So yeah, but yeah, we take, if someone calls or emails and they're interested, and we'll look at what they have to offer, and then we'll see how that fits in. I'd love to take everybody with me. I've had
Yeah, I'm
presenters
sure.
who I didn't have a place for them to present, but they wanted to experience it for themselves, and so they're more than welcome to join us
Yeah.
on the cruise. So
Do you have things like arts and crafts for people in your group?
yes, we do. So that's one of the activities that we've done each of the sailings. We've done different things, like I said, we do like aromatherapy where people can come to a workshop and mix up their own little potion depending on what's going on with them. They might say, I'm having a problem sleeping or what have you. We'll show them how. So obviously an expert in that. I don't know, I'm not an expert in that. We've made dream catchers, we've made jewelry, necklaces, keychains. We've done votives with looked like stained glass. I mean, just we do different projects because again, there's another piece to being sitting at a table with a group of people, working with your hands, and actually doing something that maybe they otherwise wouldn't do. And then that's something they can take home with them and say, hey, I really enjoyed doing that. And they might join a craft class when they get home because they found here I was amongst these people and the conversation that goes on and the healing and the the sharing. And it's just again those types of activities really do encourage that different type of interaction. You're not in an official seminar, you're not in an official support group, but you're sitting there putting a necklace together, right, or beads or
Yeah.
something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that works out really good.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
what about how large is the group that you take each time? And is there a lot of demand for those spots?
Well, yes, we usually book space for 200 guests. And so that again is for the meeting space. And we can hold any number of cabins. We just have to deposit them. We started out, I did write it down, so I want to make sure I had the right numbers, but we did start out our first cruise that we took in 2016. We had 22 people who came with us. And then the next year we had 60 people. 2019, we had 100 people. 2020, we had about 75 booked prior to us being canceled. And then the last cruise, we had 80 people. So we kind of more than doubled until we got to 2020. And I think this last cruise in 2021, I had so many people who wanted to cruise, but they didn't want to get vaccinated, whatever reason, doesn't matter to me. But there's a lot of healthy sail orders out there, so you have to be willing to be vaccinated. At that point, you had to wear a mask, and there was a lot of people that was just so uncertain. They just felt it wasn't the right time. So I think the numbers being a little bit lower, but we've consistently before that went up, and we anticipate already our numbers going up this for the next one coming up in 23.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine because the conditions should be even more favorable for
Yes,
cruising
we're
than,
hoping.
plus just the huge need from these years of COVID that we've been
I
through. There's
know, I
so
know.
much like pent up need. And I was going to ask you, I'm sure in your work with funeral homes, you're seeing that as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's amazing. And again, there is a huge need for, and there's always a need when a loved one is lost and there's a family left behind, there's always need for support for grieving families. But with COVID, because people have been so isolated, and there was that whole time period there that you couldn't have the services that maybe you would have had otherwise. And so there's that whole piece of it that people just didn't get to have. And then just having your loved ones not being able to be around you during that time. It's just, so yeah, we've increased. Like I was one of the first ones that said, oh, there's no way I'm going to move my support groups online, because I always did in-person support groups. And I was the first one saying, oh, I don't know how this is going to work. Well, to this day it works perfectly fine. Was able to move all my support groups online, still running them. Very specific support groups of people who lost loved ones to COVID we've done. And it's just, again, just that availability to create that time and that space where that person can come and get that support. And I found, and obviously it's better if you can be in person, but I mean, you still have that time and that space where you can get that support that you need. And, I always say, not only in my life's work, working with families and on the cruise, I like to say we meet people where they're at. It's like we're not forcing anything on anybody. We're going to meet you where you're at. We're going to provide you with the resources that you might find helpful. And we're going to support you through that process. And ultimately, it's that person that has to go off and do the work. You talk about the grief journey, it's work. And, I always say it's not the amount of time that goes by, it's what you do with that time. So let's give you some tools and some resources so you have something to do during that time, even if it's a craft project, to suggest to somebody, there's something to be said about color, putting things together and textures and all of that. Grief affects all of your senses. So if you're working on all of your senses and trying to heal, there's things people can do that can help them, not take it away. Like you said early on in our conversation, we're not taking anybody's grief away. I wish I could, but I can't. But I can support people and I can provide valuable resources and tools. And so that's the goal.
I like the idea that on this cruise, unlike I can imagine some other retreat spaces people might go to where it would feel pretty intense. I'm here with this group and I have to show up for every session and they want me to talk and the spotlight's on me, but it sounds like on the cruise it's possible to just show up for minimal
Yep.
activities and seminars, whatever it is that
Whatever they
benefits you,
wanted.
and then
Yep.
you can just disappear and go off
Yeah.
and do other things or just rest
Yeah.
or whatever
Nothing is
happen.
expected. Nothing is expected of people. And I tell people, you can go to everything we have to offer, every session, every activity, every group, or you can go to one or two, or you can go to none. If you feel you need to come on this cruise, go sit on a balcony and look at the ocean. We will still be there to support you if you need us. We will be there. But like I said, we meet people where they're at. And if that's where they're at and that's what they feel they need, it's okay. But like I said, we typically find people do come to all of our sessions because they recognize, I think, pretty quickly that they are amongst what we call their people. They're amongst people who get it and people who are grieving. And they just it's amazing how they support each other and just be there for each other and have dinner together and then people go off to lunch together. It's just amazing. And but yeah, if somebody wants to just go sit on their deck, I highly recommend it. There's something to be said about looking at the ocean. So
I would
it's
bet some of those people stay friends after the cruise and
they
continue to
absolutely do.
communicate with each other. And
They do. Absolutely. I know that for a fact. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and you've already, I mean, already I can imagine the feedback you've had is really positive because people want to come back and go every year to every cruise you offer. But in any other stories of people who have talked about how much it benefited them?
Oh my gosh, there's so many stories. I shared the one there with my, I think she's 84-year-old lady, and she just was like, for that to be the best year of her life. And I've had people come on the cruise who they used to cruise with their husband, and they just didn't ever think they'd be able to go on a cruise again because it would just be too painful that that person wasn't there with them. That now are going to continue to cruise going into the future because they did it. They got there, they got on that cruise, they did it. And so, just people just sharing that they just felt like they connected with like-minded people, but yet they felt like they had an opportunity to recharge, relax, and take care of themselves. Like they didn't have to take care of anybody else but themselves. And so that's been a big part of the feedback as far as being able to relax and disconnect and that self-care, which is really important. And a lot of our workshops and sessions are about self-care. So that is the ultimate self-care, especially for my widow warriors who are traveling by themselves. I mean, they're there, they've got nobody to answer to, but just to do what they want to do. And so there's something to be said about all of that.
One of the things that I've written about and that I'm a big proponent of, I call grief travel, which I've used myself. Not on a cruise, but but just travel in general and leaving your home base, getting out and seeing something new and different, or maybe you go somewhere that your loved one loved or that you've never seen before, a place you've never seen, and go there and visit because it's like a pilgrimage in a way of the
Mm-hmm.
heart, and it gives you
Yeah.
this special sacred space that you mentioned to totally focus on your loss and your grief and your healing. And so I really love the aspect of the cruise, though, that you have the opportunity to have presenters that help people and educate them and give them
Yeah.
tools while they're in the midst of that pilgrimage.
Yeah. And again, I think that's what's the biggest thing that's come out of this. Like I said, that people learn that grief and joy can coexist. Because I do get people who, one of their concerns is, I'm going to go on this cruise that's going to bring up, my grief and it's going to bring up this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, yeah, well, that's why you're going on the cruise. But that's how we can support you. If you're having a hard time, we're there for you. We will walk with you and we will sit with you and we will go check on you if you want us to do that as well. And like I said, so far our group, they've gotten on that in that group and they've just been perfectly fine with it and just really happy that they came with us. And that's what it's about for me, is people realizing that they can, experience joy, and that they're not just leaving. I tell people, you don't leave your grief at home when you go away. You pack it in a suitcase and you take it with you no matter where you go. So let's help you with that. Let's help you, support you through that. And it's okay. That's another thing that's difficult for loved ones. They feel like they're dishonoring the person who died if they go and have fun. This is taking that all away. That's why they're here. That's why they're with us, because they're honoring their loved ones. And I talk a lot about maintaining that connection. What can I do that helps me to feel connected to my loved one. And this cruise is just one of those small things in the whole scheme of things that somebody can do that can help them to feel connected to their loved ones. They got to feel that, because we don't want to let go of our loved ones who have died. We don't. We want to we want to feel connected to them. So it takes all that away.
Yeah, I could see this could be a wonderful gift to give to someone, to a parent who's, who's lost their spouse, and for the family to come together and
And
support
they
the
have,
parent.
yep, that's
And I could,
exactly what, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've
It's,
had my funeral homes who have sponsored families because they felt, and again, every loss is just as painful, but there might have been some, scenarios that they're like, this family really needs to get away. And I've had funeral homes that are like, you know what? I'll just take care of it. Because I got to cover this just real quick. There are two pieces to the grief cruises. The one is the cruise itself. So there's the cost of the cruise, which is depending on what cabin the person chooses. And we do get group rates, which are better than if you were to go on and book yourself or go through another travel agent. And it has to be booked through me. So you can't go to anybody else to book the grief cruise because we have the special space. And then there's the seminars at sea. So there is the fee for the seminars at sea, but that gives people access to everything that we're doing for the 7 days. Whether it's the 3 days out to sea, whether it's a group at night, whether it's our remembrance ceremony, whatever it is, our arts and crafts, it just gives them access to all of that. And that's $300 in addition to the cost of the cruise. And I know that's one of the questions I get, what is this going to cost me?
hmm.
So, yeah.
So I know, let's see, you mentioned October 2023 is the next cruise. Are you already booking people now for
Oh,
that
yeah.
cruise?
I am. I'm already booking people in. Royal Caribbean came out with what's called flex pay. So they're letting passengers pay for 10 payments leading up to the final payment date, which for us is next July. So I have so many people just in that have just signed up, and every month it just automatically pay whatever they decide. And, it's not as much because, cruising can be expensive, especially if somebody's traveling alone. So it can be, pricey for some people, and that piece of it I don't like, which is why I like the shorter ones, because they're more affordable. But again, we're just trying to find this balance, and we're learning, and we found that the 7-night cruise on our big mega ships has really been well received. So so they have that, they can make payments. If they have, this is another important fact too, is that if somebody is, let's say, widowed and they want to go on the cruise and their best friend wants to go with them, the best friend does not have to go to the seminar. So they'd never be charged a seminar fee. They can go on a cruise and be a second person in that cabin to make it more affordable. We always welcome that second person to our remembrance ceremony and our walk to remember, certain things that we do. But yeah, they can just come on the cruise and they don't have to do anything but go hang out and have a good time.
And so I think I wanted to mention too that, I mean, it seems like October 2023 is a long time from now, though actually time is
It's
flying
not, I
by.
was
So
gonna
it'll
say it's
be
not.
here
It's like
before we know it.
it will be. I can guarantee you that, because every cruise that I've planned, I'm like, okay, I got plenty of time. And it's like all of a sudden there I am getting on the ship. I'm like, oh, how did that even happen?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's nice to for a lot of people now that I'm talking to, and I have on past cruises, it gives them something to look forward to. These people, they're so happy just to have something to look forward to. And so there's something to be said about that too.
Yeah, and I can imagine some people might be thinking, "Oh, maybe I won't even still be grieving by then." But the fact is that grief is it's an ongoing, lifelong process. We always can work on our grief, because you mentioned even some people whose loss was 30 years ago
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
benefiting from the cruise. So it isn't that, well, my grief will be over with, so I won't need to deal with it. That in fact, some people might benefit more by waiting a little bit longer after their loss
And they
before
might
they
be
do the
because
work.
right, because again, working with grieving families, that first year is just a year of all kinds of change, and it's a hard year for grief. And then you get into the second year, and that has its own other set of issues that people can be experiencing. So as you go along, it's like I said, there, down the road, somebody's like, you know what, I see this in spouses, but a lot in parents who've lost children. The loss of that child is never going to go away. So, I mean, 10 years down the road, they find us and they're like, wow, we can do this, and we can support that as well. Somebody who's 10 years out, because the grief doesn't just go away. Um, yeah. So I don't say that to scare anybody off, but it's like, I tell people that as a matter of fact, I say, I don't tell you that to scare you. I tell you that to be honest.
Yeah.
The grief does not, there's nothing that is going to take your grief away. It's going to be a matter of how you're going to walk through that journey. What are the things that you're going to find to take up that time that are going to help you with your journey? That's the best that I can offer to people as far as advice.
And it's not too far away. It's not too far out in the future to be thinking about it. And I would bet there are people listening to this podcast who either would be interested in the cruise for themselves or they know someone who is. So I hope that everyone listening will spread the word and tell other people about it, because it's just such a creative idea, and I'm really impressed with what you've
Well,
done
thank
here,
you.
Linda.
Thank you. And, I really appreciate your kind words. And, that's what it is for me, is creating awareness of the cruise. Because, we don't have any kind of advertising budget or anything like that. I mean, we put our onboard program together. We have our core group of people who, help to coordinate all of that. I had all of that up, and it's just, I don't know, it's just a real special way for people to take care of themselves and to allow themselves to do that. And like I said, it's worked. It's people say to me all the time, you told me, I could not possibly imagine how wonderful this is. And that's what you said right along. And yep, that's what I experienced. I cannot adequately describe it to you. And then you get on that cruise, it's just, the experience is just going to be so much more than that. And our guests have told us that. We've gotten testimonials after testimonials of guests saying, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of a little concerned. And they just were like, nope, none of that. It was all good, all positive, all good. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds fabulous, and now I'm tempted to get beyond my fear of seasickness.
This would be the ship to do that with, because again, it's one of the mega ships, and she just glides through that ocean, and it really is. I would be one to say that I'd be prone to seasickness and car sickness and all that kind of stuff. I'd be the first person that would be paranoid about going on a cruise, and I've not had any problems. I like I said, these big ships, they skirt around weather or high seas and all that kind of stuff. And very rarely do you hear a scenario, on Facebook or something talks about a ship that's rocking, and that it's probably a smaller ship first off, and otherwise the captain, he knows where he's going. He's gonna provide the best comfort for all of the guests on the ship that he can. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I'll remind everyone I'm talking to Linda Findlay of thegriefcruises.com, plural, thegriefcruises.com, in case you want to go check out that website and learn more about the cruises. But I just wanted to say to you, I'm so impressed with how you have taken your own devastating grief and really turned it into something beautiful that is helping and healing other people. And that really touches me.
Oh, thank you. Well, I often have said that my life work is my daughter's legacy. And that's what it's about for me, is supporting people to again, just support them, meet them where they're at, because there's really nothing I can do to take any of that away. I experienced that myself. I searched and searched and searched for something that was going to make me feel all better. And that something just never came, but I had to work on it, and I had to get doing some other things to help pass that time that were healthy and taking care of myself and finding the tools and the resources to help me to understand what I was experiencing was part of grief. There was not something wrong with me. That was my first thought. There's something wrong with me. I'm just, I can actually tell you, I sat at my kitchen table and I just said, you know what? I just wish I could close my eyes and no longer be here, and life would be fine for everybody else and I would be gone. And I went from that to working with tens of thousands of families at this point with my work through my funeral homes. And so it's just been my greatest blessing. It really has
Yeah.
been. Yeah.
It's really beautiful, and I'm very impressed. And I just love your
Oh,
creativity in that you actually made these cruises happen. The idea
I
came, and you
know.
actually did it, and that's very
Yeah.
impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I hope you have some people sign up for a cruise from this
I know that
podcast.
would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Because, like I said, it's creating awareness of it. I tell people, my phone number is on the website. Call me. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. There's never too many questions, and you need to have all the information that you can get to make the best decision for yourself to join us. And I can give you that information. Then it will be up to that person to decide, is this right for me or not? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so if you're interested, and just want more information, go to thegriefcruises.com and then get in touch with Linda to find out more.
Yeah.
Well, um, safe journeys and travels for you on the next
Yeah.
cruise.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'd love to stay in touch. And
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
all right, take care.
Thank you. You as well.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Linda Findlay. I was really happy to learn about the grief cruises, which I think is a really innovative option for people who are looking for a creative way to deal with grief and perhaps to memorialize a loved one with family members. I think going on a grief cruise together could be an awesome way, not only to have a chance away from ordinary life to process and work on healing grief, but to engage in activities like the memorial walk, night of remembrance, and even a burial of ashes at sea. It seems like it could be perfect for some people if they've enjoyed cruising or their loved one enjoyed going on cruises. What a really nice way to commemorate that person. So I wanted to share it with all of you because it's information you can spread around to people you're working with for whom it might be just the perfect thing. And remember, that website is thegriefcruises.com. So if you enjoy content like this, I hope you'll share it with people who might benefit from listening in. And be sure to subscribe wherever you happen to listen and leave a rating and review if you feel so inclined. Also check out the YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well. And if you're interested in becoming a patron and supporting this podcast, you can go to eoluniversity.com/support. And there you'll find 3 different ways you can make contributions to help keep this podcast on the air. So until we're together again next week, remember that we're here for love. So face your fear, be ready for whatever happens next, and just love each and every moment of your very precious life. Bye-bye.